Greetings, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Dreamscapes. Today we have our friend Eric Spitz, who is a podcaster you can find it in the description below. He's got the podcast Juxtaposed Journeys. We're going to throw it over to him in just 2 seconds. Please stop what you're doing. Like, share, subscribe, tell your friends. Always need more volunteer dreamers. I forget how many books of historical dream literature I have now. I'm working on a new audiobook. We're going to get that out as soon as I can. And get a t-shirt, coffee mug. Always take direct donations. Finally hit 1K subs very soon, hopefully to be monetized, and I can stop begging for money. We'll just let YouTube pay me. That would be ideal. That is the housekeeping. And back to the actual guest, our friend Eric Spitz. So you were telling me a little bit beforehand about your stuff, and we kind of distilled it down a little bit like the elevator pitch. You do an interview style podcast with people who are kind of living their best life and asking them about what that is. And you're also trying to run a marathon in all 50 states. And you could say whatever you want about all that, and we'll just roll with it. So what's the deal with the podcast?
Yeah, so Juxtaposed Journeys, like you said, is an interview style podcast. I bring a different guest on each episode, and I interview them about their life passions, whether that's a side hustle or full-fledged operation. It's generally outside of the 8 to 5 realm. So it's any of those conversations you have with a stranger to where you get on a subject and then a big smile comes across their face and they just talk your ear off about something. Like those are the conversations I just really eat up. So I try to get those types of guests on there just talking about things they're passionate about. And it's been a blast. I've been doing it for a little over a year now. Juxtaposed Journeys originally started as a blog to where it was kind of like a travel blog. I would document about my traveling experiences. I would write about each state that I ran a marathon in and slowly kind of document that process. And the end goal is I'm actually going to compile all those and write a book on it once I'm done with all 50. But so far I've completed 19 total marathons in 16 states. So I've done Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, Mississippi, Nevada, New Jersey, Ohio, Oregon, Texas, Washington, and Wisconsin. Wow.
That is precisely 19 more marathons than I've ever run in my life. Not much of a runner, more of a sitter and a thinker.
I really don't know what keeps me coming back to them. I mean, I've always been a runner, but I mean, there's nothing more physically and mentally taxing that I've done personally than a marathon. But for whatever reason, it's an addicting feeling to just push yourself beyond your limits or what you think your limits are, to see that finish line at the end and cross it and be like, I did it. I completed it. And then I just keep coming back for more, apparently.
It is a very distinct kind of experience, setting yourself a goal, training for it, and then putting yourself to the test. Can I do this thing? It's not like you just give up at the last minute and say, I don't feel like. You're like, no, this is happening and I'm going to make it happen, and I can make it happen. That's got to be amazing when you're done with it. And I can, as much as I'm never probably going to do that. Not that specific type. Maybe I do that with books. I mean, I spend a month, 2 months, 4 months at one point on a marathon journey of this intense daily focus. And there's an end goal. It's a very definite end goal. And I just keep doing it over and over again. So maybe your thing is more physical. Mine's more in this linguistic, writing words realm type of thing. But I think it's a similar experience. Although I would say the physical accomplishment being something more difficult for me, I'd give that a little more kudos than just publishing a book. It's in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think the same parallel can be applied just in terms of the discipline, the everyday repetition of whether it's reading or running or what have you. I mean, that alone takes commitment and dedication, is definitely respectable.
Yeah, definitely. That's I feel kind of silly saying, well, it's just the same for me. It's not the same, but it's in the ballpark. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. So, yeah, it's definitely in the ballpark.
Do you have any folks that stand out off the top of your head? Not necessarily the most interesting or important, but standout moments from your interviews where you were talking to someone, you're like, I never knew that, or that's really interesting, or.
Yeah, those are the interviews I honestly really enjoy the most personally, are ones where I pretty much go in blind to it. I mean, I do as much research and prepare as much as I can beforehand, so I don't sound like an idiot. But the different ones where I'm like, that's something you don't hear about every day. Like I interviewed somebody on Lolita Fashion. I interviewed someone on BTS, which is a K-pop group, and she runs a YouTube channel and does a reaction videos on YouTube. And that was interesting because that was something I knew pretty much nothing about going into it. And I crammed all my research the day before that. And then just anything like that. I mean, I interviewed some of my friends who have a sports card memorabilia business, and I've always been big into sports, but I never really knew much about, I guess, card collecting and the behind the scenes aspect of that. I didn't even know what a box break event was or anything. So I really
I've never heard of that either.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's well, I could go on a long tangent about that stuff, but yeah, it's I really enjoy those interviews a lot, where I learn a lot from the experience, and even the ones to where I'm already really familiar with it, but it's just something that I gush over. Then those are really special too in their own way. Like, I've interviewed several paranormal investigators on my podcast, and those are always a ton of fun. I mean, just some really interesting experiences and conversations there.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things resonated with me from what you were saying, the idea of going in blind. And that's what I do with dreamers on this show is, and it's intentional too for me as well. It's like, I don't even ask people, well, what's the dream? I say, do you have one? And as long as they do, what I don't want to do is prejudice myself by thinking about it too much. There's some kind of wizardry, magic to the experience of hearing it for the first time, first impressions, and just following this thread as a contained experience that sounds like it's very similar. And then even when, as you were saying, where you're familiar with the topic, but you're also hearing why someone else is passionate about the same thing from their own unique perspective. And you guys might both dearly love, as you say, sports. And then someone says, well, for me, it's this, that, and the other aspect of it that really gets my blood pumping. And you're like, never thought of that, because for me, it's these things over here. I'm like, that's amazingly unique. Same passion for the same thing from different sources. So that could be a lot of fun to find out.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Those conversations are so much fun. Yeah. I mean, just going back to the sports card memorabilia business, like I said, I've always been into sports, but it was something I never really thought that much about. And I kind of compared it to like Pokemon cards and stuff like that, because I used to be big into those when I was in elementary school. And some of those memories and stuff started coming back even for that. And I started having that nostalgic feeling, even though I don't have a specific connection to sports card memorabilia. I was like, I can appreciate, this because I can identify with it. I can throw this parallel that way of doing that when I was younger. So it's like, I can definitely understand the appeal. And it was just, you get caught up in that passion and that energy for sure.
Oh yeah. And what you just said about like comparative things, great interaction I had with my mom years ago. What was I like, 9, 10, 11, something like that. And I asked her, Mom, why do you watch soap operas? Because I didn't get it. I'm like, I couldn't care less about these people and their drama. And I just couldn't understand the appeal. And she thought about it for a moment. She said, why do you read comic books? Oh, like bam, mind blow, like a Zen meditation, one hand clapping type of thing. My whole perspective on different people like different things. They're more invested in different, years went by before I really was able to kind of process it, but it instantly made sense. I love those moments. And they can be rare too. I mean, that wasn't something she was rehearsing and waiting to say. It just occurred to her as a genuine interactive response in the moment. Never forget that. If my mom ever watches this video, hi Mom. They watch some of my stuff, not all of it. They got a life too. But
yeah, that's great.
Yeah, unless you have other stuff you want to plug immediately, we could get on with the dream. It's up to you.
Yeah. No, that sounds good to me.
Good deal. Yeah. So as per my usual process, I'm just going to shut up and listen. Our friend Eric's going to tell us the dream from beginning to end, and then we're going to see what we can make of it. So I'm ready when you are.
Yeah, for sure. So I had this dream, I believe, within the last year or so, and it's just kind of stuck with me. And I've tried looking into different aspects of it, but haven't had much luck finding anything definitive. I've heard some things, so I would love to hear your thoughts on it overall as well. So anyway, in this dream, I'm browsing around the shop, and it looks kind of like a small-time record shop, and I'm the only one in it. It's also late at night, and there's just a very dark atmosphere to this place. And while I'm looking around, all of a sudden, there's someone outside who wants to come in the shop. And I can't remember if they knock first or anything, but I hear their voice, and they sound nice, but I can only hear their voice on the outside. And I become conflicted on what to do. I get the sense in the stream that I'm not, the owner of the shop. I'm just a patron. And it's after hours, so do I let this stranger into the shop? And ultimately, I give in, and I unlock the door, and I let this person in. And when I open the door, I'm immediately filled with dread because this person has no face. They just have a white head, but no nose, no mouth, no eyes, nothing. And this thing is communicating with me, which I realize, must be telepathic since they don't have a mouth. And they come in the shop and they're looking around and talking to me, and they're still being polite and pleasant, but I just don't feel comfortable. Something just feels off about the whole thing. And even though this thing has no facial features or distinguishing features at all, I get the sense that it's masculine based on the voice and overall presence of it. And yeah, even though this thing overall is being friendly, I just want to get out of there. It's almost like I immediately regret letting this thing in the store, and I'm trying to figure out an escape plan. And in this dream, I got around by flying, or people get around by flying, or at least I did, which is normally not something I dream about. And I don't fly in the sense of just like sprouting wings and flying like a bird or anything. It's almost like if you've ever seen the movie Chronicle, where you just like have the ability to get from place to place. Yeah. Okay, so you know what I'm talking about. That's like literally what it felt like. And anyway, I remember this thing kept following me throughout the dream. And unfortunately, I don't remember specific things that were said in our interactions, but I just remember the overall tone and how uncomfortable everything felt. And this thing started out nice in the shop, but then things got progressively worse as the dream progressed. So no matter where I went, this thing would follow me. The nice demeanor in the beginning eventually shifted to what I would describe as having a clingy friend, almost. Like they always want to know what your plans are, and then if you try and be polite, say you're too busy or something came up, they just immediately change their demeanor and be like, well, if you don't want to hang out, just tell me, type thing. So, yeah, not necessarily anything that feels like a threat, but it's just more emotionally draining.
Gotcha.
And then, and that even that feeling kept progressing into a feeling where I did feel threatened eventually, and I just felt trapped. And I couldn't shake this thing, and I was at a loss on what to do. And yeah, so this one just really stands out because usually in my dreams, everyone has faces, and like I can see people's face even though I can't recognize all the time who they are. They always have some sort of facial features or something like that. It's so this one just really stands out in that way of just not having a face, because that really just kind of disturbed me.
For sure. Yeah. And that actually seems like it might have been the purpose of taking away a face. Because in a lot of dreams, if you ask someone, who was there? Well, it was my mom. Well, was she wearing makeup or not? I mean, what typical feature of your mom might have been different? And they're like, I can't remember having seen her face, but it was the mom, and you knew the face was there. So in a lot of dreams, it's assumed the normalness of something is its own type of representation. The distinctly abnormalness of something is its own type of indicator. That's fascinating, wonderful. So we got a record shop and this bizarre kind of creature and this experience with it. So yeah, so part two, I call the deep dive. We just begin at the beginning, go back through it again, and try to kind of expand or at least dive deeper into each of the little things. So the first thing you can remember is being in the record shop itself or walking into it yourself through the door. How did you
my earliest memory is already being in the shop looking around and just kind of browsing around, looking at things. And like I said, it had a very dark tone, if I remember, throughout the whole dream. It seemed like it was just always nighttime. Not necessarily like dreary or anything. I got the sense it was just constantly night.
Yeah. Do you have any strong associations with record shops? Is that something you used to do as a kid, or something you still do?
Yeah, I mean, like I love music. I love record shops. I started collecting vinyl several years ago, and yeah, it kind of gave off the vibe of something like that. Almost like it was the shop itself was a comfortable space, or just something I usually like doing. And yeah, so the shop itself felt comfortable. It's just this overall interaction to where it's just, I feel like the whole time I just had that feeling of dread. Even in the beginning when this thing was being polite and everything's like, something's not right about this. Like it was almost like I felt regret the whole time. Like I shouldn't have opened the door, and I was like beating myself up about it like the whole time.
Yeah. Gotcha. So if you kind of look in your visual record of what you were doing, records, were you at any particular location in the store? Were you towards the back, by the counter, browsing through a particular genre of music? Yeah. Anything come to mind?
Ooh, that's a good one. If I remember right, I feel like I feel like the door was kind of like to the right of me, and I was kind of like in the back. Where would that place me? Like if I'm coming in the door, I'm kind of like near the back right corner. And then, yeah, so I feel like if anything, I'm kind of in the back kind of corner of the store looking
So you're
around.
actually further from the door, almost as
Yeah.
far as you can be without going into the actual back of the shop.
Yeah, I would say so. Yep.
Okay. And I don't know that it means anything, but this is where my brain starts going with stuff. Is okay, physical placement of the store. You didn't show yourself walking in. You appeared in this space. Your brain just said, you're here. Doesn't matter how you got there. That can be its own kind of interesting thing. Also, your placement in there, you're not at the counter talking to someone. You're not, asking for help. You're not near the front door as if hesitant in this space, like afraid to go too far in. You are well in. You are deep in. You're all the way in the back. And so it's very much as you were saying, a comfort with the space. I think that jives with what you were saying of this is typically a place I would be very comfortable. And so your brain's also kind of showing you that by saying you're not just in the store, you're well far into the store, deep into the subject. There's something in that conception. And this is where I don't start asking people to say, well, what do you make of that? I might, but but just highlighting those, and I like to verbalize it out loud too, because sometimes that knocks something loose in my brain saying, what is that? Or it inspires, like if you have a thought, cut me off anytime, I'll just keep rambling. That's kind of how I do. But you don't remember doing anything specific in terms of you were browsing something, you were, was there any music playing in the store? Any other sensory experiences of the space, smell?
Yeah, not that I remember. It almost gave off the impression, like I feel like I remember like magazines in there too, like almost just like a media space. That's kind of the vibe the overall store gave me. And yeah, and I almost think I remember like a black and white checkered floor, if I'm thinking specific details.
Okay. And that could be something specific, or it could be an iconic representation of some other store you've been in the past, or spaces typically have a floor. So maybe your brain just said, oh, it's a black and white tile. Maybe, I mean, if something strong comes up for you, and we may come back around to it too. That's something like I put little carrots on here to make sure I don't forget to come back to things. But you did mention that you had the impression that it was after hours, that the store was actually closed.
Right.
And you were in it.
And almost, yeah, I kind of had that thought in my head too. And even after the fact, like, how was I still in there? Like, I didn't get the impression that I was the owner. I'm looking around, I'm being a patron in the store. Why am I the only one in there? And why do I have to unlock the door, to let this person in? Why am I being allowed to stay in this store after hours? It was just a little bizarre.
You did have that kind of impression in the dream, or afterwards looking back on it?
I think it was I think I even had that realization in the dream too. Like my first instinctive thought when this person's knocking is like, I got to unlock the door and I'm not even sure if I'm allowed to do that type thing. Like I feel like that's just kind of a no-no in this place. And yeah. And I just have that kind of moral conflict in my head of what to do. Like, should I let this person in? Should I not? And I even kind of like debate it, think about it, at first. And then it's almost like when I finally make that decision, like, oh, I'll just let him in. Then that's when I immediately like regret it.
Gotcha. Yeah. So it's interesting too. It's not a middle of the afternoon, bright of day, hustle and bustle store. You're very much in a familiar, comfortable, generally pleasant space, somewhere you would enjoy being normally. You're not out of your fish out of water in that sense. And you're in a space where, what am I trying to say? It's like there's maybe a special kind of relationship with the type of space that you would be in it after it was closed. Whatever was going on there, you were not ejected from that place. You weren't there. You didn't have the sensation that you'd broken in, but right. In the very beginning, you didn't have the sensation that you were out of place either. That you were unwelcome, that you were there's something I'm going with there. It's like sometimes the owner of a bar, they lock the door and you stay and have another round with them, that kind of thing, where it's like it's a special relationship to the place itself. I don't know where to go with that either, but that's something that pops to mind too. There's this whole construct of imagine yourself in this very specific situation and then something happens, so you are kind of being given special treatment in a way. You were enjoying a special status that other, say, regular customers wouldn't. And then that relates in a very interesting way to the idea of how far does this special status extend? Does it extend to authorizing me to let other people in. And you agonized over that for a moment. That's interesting too.
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of considering where am I at? What am I doing? And what does that then allow me to grant to others? Or, you know, am I crossing a boundary? Am I crossing a line by welcoming other people into this space without permission? Because it's not my space. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, there's something there. I don't know if anything comes to mind thinking about all those things. It does or doesn't, but I like to pause every now and again and take a breath. Let other people respond.
No, all that stuff really makes a lot of sense. And I guess I should provide a little background and context. So I actually have a background in music journalism. I did it all throughout college. So I wrote for a small publication, Mind Equals Blown, reviewing albums, interviewing bands. And then after that, I started writing for Substream Magazine, doing the same thing. And it was wild. I got to interview some of my favorite bands from high school and people I never thought I'd sit down and talk music with, you know, so it was just kind of a surreal feeling. And, you know, to have my work actually published in a printed magazine, you can get it like FYE and Barnes and Noble and stuff like that. Like I went out to Powell's out in Portland, Oregon, and like they had a copy there. And I was like, this is crazy.
I've been there.
Like, yeah, Powell's is great.
In terms of the breadth of the United States, it's down the street for me. So yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah,
I didn't mean to interrupt. Yeah.
No, you're good. So it was just kind of wild. So the way I kind of took it is, it's just kind of it's a comfortable space to me because it's something I have a personal connection to. Yeah. So I feel like this is just even though it's after hours, I don't feel like I'm intruding on anything, even though it's not my shop. You know, maybe I had some special permission to stay there after hours or something.
Yeah, certainly in the dream, it felt like, or it did not feel like you were trespassing. Not initially. Whatever was happening was kosher in that way at that time. And that's interesting. You brought up this. So you had a very similar kind of experience with interviewing bands. You get to go backstage where most music goers at a venue would not be allowed to go because you're going to go meet the band, interview them, maybe watch their performance from the wings. It's a very different perspective on that kind of a process. So there's some kind of correlation to being allowed in the store after hours by permission or permission's not the right word. It's a welcome to special permission's not the term. Can you think of a better way to describe it?
like you're authorized to be there type thing, or like, I mean, well, that makes it sound more like professional, I guess, but it's I get what you're saying though. It's it's almost like a special privilege or something to be there.
Yeah. Special relationship. I'm looking for just the right word. Sometimes I rack my brain because there's a shade of meaning between these two words. There's a third word in the middle, and it's not coming to me. And I got hung up on that, but that's okay. But I think we both get the basic idea. It's this special relationship to the space and the privileges or permissions that come with that special status is kind of where we're going with it. This happens a lot too in my discussions with people, and actually I'm finding this in the books I'm editing where they talk about the associative method of interpretation that goes back to Jungian psychology, like the 1900s. And very often you just mention an element of the dream and someone tells you a story, just like you did. And now maybe that's exactly what it is meant for you to associate it with. Maybe that's literally where that image came from in your brain, or not. That's where I get hung up sometimes, is saying, so that's definitely an experience you had, and it's definitely related, but how? And I hesitate to say it's a one-to-one correlation, but there may be. So what I like to do is prime people's brains by telling them, okay, think of that story in relation to your experience there, and don't try to answer it right away, but let it just kind of simmer, and then we're going to go on through the rest of it. And sometimes those things will fill themselves in as we go, and it's like the more other stuff. Anyway, just for the audience out there and for you and my process. But was there a specific reason you left that line of work? Did you become more passionate about something else, or was it kind of taken away from you? You had to shift gears? If it's okay to ask, I don't mean to embarrass you.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Sometimes how those iconic things ended in our life can inform how we think about them later. Yeah.
No, I love the work. I think ultimately, though, at the end of the day, is the work itself was pretty inconsistent, and then the the pay really wasn't that great. It was definitely nothing I could live on. The experience was awesome, but
Yeah.
it was one of those things where I'm like, well, I gotta, I gotta make a living and try to figure out something a little more practical and stuff, and maybe do this as like a side hobby, as a full fledged operation. I'm not saying it's not possible, but it's just it's going to be a lot more difficult. And so I kind of kept it as like a side hobby, and then kind of life situations and other projects took over, and I just became less and less involved in some of these projects. And truth be told, I kind of got burned out on writing for a little bit, because I feel like in the very beginning, I would say yes to everything because I just wanted writing samples. I wanted, I wanted to build it like a good resume and stuff, but then eventually reach a point to where you can start saying no to people because you have enough, clips and writing samples out there. But that's always a hard part I ran into, and which is probably a parallel for this stream as well. But I have a hard time saying no. So
gotcha.
And that's something I still run into. So yeah, it's like really difficult for me. So in terms of a freelance writer, it's great in the beginning because you get a lot of work thrown your way, but then you eventually just get burnt out and exhausted, because it's like, if you're just saying yes to everything, you're just, you're not really doing anything for yourself anymore.
Yeah. And you just really can't, like physically can't. Things you may be enthusiastic about all of it. There's only so many hours in the day, other responsibilities and different stuff. So, but that is interesting too. So I think all of that relates. These are all elements of you that can be drawn upon by the dream constructor subconscious area to kind of reference little things. And that's very often what we get to, is these little things. Imagine it's something similar to this, and this is similar to something else, and also this other thing, but they're all kind of happening at the same time. That's what we do in our waking thoughts as well, when we're trying to kind of puzzle through things. Well, what is this situation I'm in similar to? How have I solved other problems? How have I felt about this kind of thing in other circumstances? And we're trying to, at the very least, if not answer a question specifically, but at least come up with a coherent story to tell ourselves about the thing we're looking at in our mind's eye. So it's kind of where I'm going with most of this stuff. So we got as far as the very beginning of the dream. You're standing in a record store. That's how this works. That's why some episodes have gone 3.5 hours. I'm not going to keep you that long. I promise. We'll try and go faster, unless you want to. It's always up to the dreamer. Yes. So was it almost immediately after recognizing where you were that the knock happened? Was it almost like just bing bang, or did you do some other stuff? Did you walk around and browse and see anything? What was that experience?
I feel like I was browsing around, and I must have been at least somewhat closer to the door, or else I would have, to hear the voice or to hear the knock or whatever means of attention this thing did. But I think I might have been probably browsing around and maybe got close to the door or something. Oh, there's somebody outside. And and it's always kind of, you have to put your guard up a little bit, especially like unfamiliar, you're the only one here. It's after hours, it's late at night, and it's just a voice outside. You can't hear anything. You got to trust what they're saying or kind of make that gut reaction.
Yeah.
So that in itself, you gotta be mindful of, and it's obviously terrifying. And yeah, in the context of this, I was even still rationalizing it, thinking, having these thoughts, putting my guard up a little bit, thinking, do I do it? And just having that conflict in my head. And yeah, honestly, I think there's so many parallels in my waking state that my subconscious was trying to say, based on everything we've been talking about so far too, just about, I guess, being a people pleaser and having this kind of, this, I guess, music journalism or this space in general, just kind of being comfortable to me, and it being comfortable until it was quote unquote invaded, I guess.
Yeah. Well, if that makes sense. And that's a lot of times what will happen on these is like, okay, we're starting to get a little bit of a theme, and you've kind of honed in on something that really resonates with you. This idea of, I've had a hard time setting boundaries perhaps. And that's drawn generally from I like to make people happy. It makes me feel good, but also I feel this pressure and there's a tension in myself. What is it? We're trying to ease our anxiety by performance, doing things. Like, it's funny that some of the same stuff that motivates the OCD folks to tap the doorknob 17 times is to try and get that feeling of anxiety to go away, and when it's gone, they can stop. And the same thing we do with people ask us to do things, immediately anxiety, and we can dissipate it by just saying, okay, And then we're off the hook. We've agreed to it. They're not going to, the risk of being critically judged or having someone have a negative reaction that we then have to endure permanently. I mean, for however long it lasts, that dissipates all by just being cooperative. That's how a lot of people get sucked into it. And it can be hard to say, it's okay with me if you're unhappy with me. And people go, well, you're an asshole. I'm like, yes. you just get used to it after a while. But it's not easy. It's not easy for everybody. And I'm better and worse at it at some points. But recognizing that and actually accepting that in yourself. This person might hate me, but I'm not doing that. For me, that is not okay. I don't want to. No one can make me. No matter how mad they get, that can be a very tough place to get to for a lot of people, for a lot of different reasons. All of that to say, so if we say we nailed that, and that is absolutely 100% true, what does the dream tell you about what you're thinking is related to that? Do you want to do something about it? Do you think you should? Are there particular strategies you're considering? So this is where I go with putting the arc of the story together. So the dream may be saying, imagine you're put in a situation where you have to make a decision. You're not sure about it. You do your best, and it turns out you don't like it. What do you do? And that may be the rest of the dream. Is kind of saying now. Because what do? We imagine a lot of hi, CC boy. It's value added content. They just need love. He's gonna cry until I let him out, but we're just gonna let him cry. It's a lot of what we do in our waking thoughts. We let our ideas die so we don't have to in real life. So we imagine scenarios. Okay, what if I did this? What do I think would happen? What if I said this to that person? How do I think they'd react? So I think this may be going somewhere with that in the dream scenario. You're comfortable in the space. You're moving around the store. You get near the door. Do you remember the quality of the knocking? It was soft. It was insistent pounding. Anything come to mind on that?
I feel like it was soft spoken. Yeah. Like I didn't feel like the presence was like very threatening right off the bat. It was almost just like a hey, like, can you do me a huge solid? Can you let me in type thing? I mean, that I'm obviously paraphrasing. I don't remember exactly what was said, but it was just almost like can you do me this huge favor type thing? I'm really sorry. I don't mean to inconvenience you or something. It was very self-aware and polite. So that's why I was like, well, maybe I could do this person a favor or something. And then it's like I instantly knew that was a bad idea as soon as I opened the door.
So the experience you had of it was the knocking, the entire behavior from the knocking and the phrasing that wasn't exactly in words, and the nature of the request, the fact that it was a request. So this wasn't someone pounding, demanding, God damn it, let me in. This was very much a different kind of approach to you. But I started, I wrote down like petitioning for a favor in a kind of apologetic way, in this self-aware politeness and a very non-threatening demeanor. But immediately there, you're put into that dilemma of, I have to choose. I'm either going to, even if you open the door, or you don't, and it can go a lot of different ways. You can say, get lost, buddy, or you can just pretend you don't hear it. There's a lot of different coping strategies we can use to, sorry, I didn't hear you there. I'm doing my own thing. A lot of people do that. Oh no, I didn't know. But either way, you've got to make a decision. And you were debating at that moment whether you felt like you had the authority to let the person into the space. How did you kind of put that earlier? Because I may not have written it down specifically. What were you kind of feeling about in that moment of decision making?
Yeah, kind of how I felt in the moment was almost just like I'll do this person a favor type thing. I don't feel like it's necessarily my authority to be doing this, but I feel like I'm doing this to help them out. I'm doing them a favor type thing. And yeah, kind of like what you were saying before, if it was immediately right off the bat an aggressive presence or something like that, I feel like it'd be much easier for me to either just ignore it or be like, I can't do that. This isn't even my store. This is after hours. I can't do that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, It might be good. And I'm racking my brain too to kind of describe that type of appeal, because there's different approaches people use to make a request. Sometimes they're aggressive and people capitulate out of fear. That's one way of getting what you want. But there's also this other way that comes across as a petitioning for benevolence. Oh, kind, person, please help me. And that's its own kind of an appeal that puts its own kind of unique pressure on someone to respond. I don't know if any thoughts come to your mind about how to describe that experience. Or how to describe.
It's tough.
Just
because
how to label their behavior. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, especially if somebody's is being polite, because I feel like I'm a very empathetic person, and I feel like if I'm in a tough spot, or if I just, I'm really just looking for like a quick favor for something, and I feel like in those situations where you feel kind of helpless, or that you just want someone to help you out, then obviously if you're in that position, you want someone to help you out in that situation. I kind of put myself in their perspective. Like, I feel like they would really be grateful for this if I just open the door for them or something, or what have you. And yeah, it's tough, and it makes it hard, because I even had that, moral dilemma, because I was thinking, can I trust this person? I have no idea. And I had to make that kind of quick judgment. And yeah, it's difficult. And I feel like a lot of those parallels can be applied in my working life and everything too, because I feel like it's hard for me to definitively say no to something. I think the worst I'll do, and is just kind of say, I'm really busy right now. I don't know what my schedule looks like. I don't even know when I'd be able to get to this type thing, which isn't wrong, but it almost just, but to the more pushy person, that just tells them, let me just follow up in a few months when they're not as swamped. Type thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then you have to have that same exact conversation again.
It's a very nice way to shine someone on. In some ways, it's a very gentle, it's almost like the first thing that popped to mind was, you ask a girl, what are you doing on Saturday? Well, I'm busy on Saturday. How about Sunday? And really She was saying, I'm not interested, but she didn't say, I'm not interested.
Exactly.
So there's that delicate balance between being, direct and being diplomatic, and you almost want to, as much as possible, do both at the same time. And again, I'm no golden god when it comes to that kind of stuff. I've got my own struggles of, and I feel different ways at different times. At the beginning of a particular week, I might feel one way, and by the end of the week, I feel a different way. My approach might change, and it changes based on the person who's asking. But I think one of the key phrases you came up with, and it is definitely the approach of an appeal to empathy. Look at me in this needy state. Imagine yourself being in a needy state. I would want someone to help me. So you start, what is doing a just outcome, or an appropriate act of generosity in a certain situation. How would I want to be treated? I think that idea of empathy is very, very important, and appeal to empathy specifically, because we want to be empathetic, but we also don't want people to manipulate our empathy, manipulative empathy traps of, look at how pathetic I am. That's going to obligate you to do something for me because you're a good person, and I know I can play on that. So those are all very, how do we balance that out? How do we decide if someone's worth our time? That can be extremely difficult. You want to give people the benefit of the doubt and say, well, maybe they will, until you get evidence to the contrary. Maybe you do give people the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
Anyway, those are all the thoughts that come to my mind around that. What is, because there's something happening at the door there in presenting you with this moment of challenge. It's expressing a particular idea. So I'm trying to throw as much color on the painting as I can, like to really make it pop and try and describe it for what it is. Sometimes it takes me rambling in circles for a minute.
No, I mean, I think that all makes a lot of sense for sure. Yeah. I mean, and I like the way you phrase that too, of just, we only have so much time, and almost like wondering, and it sounds harsh to say it out loud, but almost just wondering, like, is this person or this interaction or this experience like worth my time, in the sense of, do I have time to commit to this type thing? Yeah. Or, because, as we get older, as we become adults and have all these side projects and passions and whatever, life things, coming up, it gets really hard, and our time becomes very limited, and we have to make those decisions on, how do I want to spend my time? Is this a good use of my time, or would I benefit more from something else?
Yeah. And it's tough too, to let's say you've got someone who is very close to you. They are, it's long-term, mutually beneficial, mutually reciprocal for help type of situation. They come to you and ask you, I need a big favor. You're more likely to do it because we go way back. I know this person's going to pay me back in terms of treating me well when I need help. They're going to be there in the same circumstance. We give that a different kind of attention, and we might even be willing to drop things that are equally or more important in some ways to say, I got to do this thing. I got a friend who needs me. This is the moment. I got to do it. We get into other circumstances where it's someone you don't know. You've never met them. You don't know what you're getting into, and they're asking for maybe something small, maybe something big, but you're like, I could. It's not that I can't do this. I don't want to. There is something else I already have scheduled. I'm going to keep that schedule. I'm not going to be helping you. I'm sorry. And that feels even to the most blunt, direct people, myself being in that, it feels terrible to tell someone you're not that important. Bye. Whoa. I mean, just phrasing it that way is awful. And I do that on purpose because it's kind of the feeling you get. It's like, God, am I being an asshole? Is this just, maybe should I take a minute? I don't know. Sometimes you agonize over it. It depends on how important is the thing you're going to do. You're like, you're late for work. Sorry, buddy. I got to go. Well, what are you going to do? I'm not going to give up my job to help you once. Who are you? No offense. But then so this is very much, and the fact that when you open the door too, it's a faceless person. This is very much in the dream saying, you don't even know this guy. You didn't recognize the voice. This is a complete random stranger in a way that, and almost instantly you start regretting, what is this? But then there's something interesting there too, in that idea that it's not that you didn't just, I don't know who this person is. I knew this person was a person I didn't know. This person specifically has no face, and that's creepy as fuck. And you're actually having that experience in the dream. And the idea that you're getting this telepathic communication as well, and that they are actually speaking. It wasn't just a vibe you got off them, but you had the sense of sentences being spoken in that way. Yeah.
They were definitely communicating. So it's unfortunate I don't remember the specific words that were said, but I think that was what was creepy, to me about it, because I guess the realistic part of the analytical part of my brain was thinking like, this person has no face. This is terrifying.
Yeah. And there's no mouth, and they're speaking to me. I understand what they're trying to communicate. And what was that kind of experience like of the receiving the communicated thoughts? Was it as if they were speaking to you, or was it very much a kind of whispered echo in the back of the head type of, this is telepathy?
Yeah, it was almost like I knew they were speaking to me, and I was even just trying to write off my gut feelings even from the beginning. Like, even though I had these gut feelings of just, this was a mistake, I shouldn't have done this, I was almost even trying to rationalize it in my head, I remember, and thinking just like, you're just judging this person because they have no face type thing. Like, it's just like, stop being mean. They're being very polite. Maybe you're just a little off put by this experience because they have no face and you're not used to that kind of interaction. You've never met anybody with no face. So I was kind of writing it off and thinking, I'm just jumping to conclusions way too quick. They're being polite. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, I think that was a very powerful phrase too. Is like you're second guessing. You're having this self-doubt in not trusting your gut feelings, and even questioning, should I have trusted my gut feelings? There's probably something there too. And I'm sure that relates to, if we go with that broad or original theme of the idea of how and when to set those kind of boundaries and the people-pleasing desire. Kind of post hoc rationalizing, it's not necessarily the way to do it, but giving voice to our self-doubts contrary to our gut feeling, coming up with rationalizations for doubting the gut feeling. I didn't turn my phone off. It's ringing back there. That's just going to happen. This is about the time of day that Scam Likely calls me, and they never leave a message, so I don't know what they want.
No, I deal with the same exact calls.
Right?
So yeah,
that was kind of amazing when that happened. It was just in the past year that popped up as a caller ID function, the Scam Likely thing. I'm like, okay, well, I'll go with that, I guess.
I know, yeah, and they went as far as ignoring calls that could potentially be spam, and I get notified all day of just like potential spam, missed call, and stuff like that. I was like, well, they're not leaving messages, so they probably are. It must not be that important.
Yeah, you want to talk to me? I'll call you back. Sure. I mean, unless it's like we have word of recent activity on your bank account. No, no, you don't. I know my bank's number.
Exactly.
Actually, speaking of which, people do their own things, but I'm a big guy for community credit unions. They should be down the block. They should be in your neighborhood. It should be members in your community. In my opinion, you do what you want to do, but I'd be okay if everyone pulls their money out of banks, puts it in local community credit unions. I think I'd like to see that happen. That's just me. That's my opinion.
No, I love credit unions. Yeah.
Yep. I think you just get treated better, and I think they make better decisions, and I think they're less, they abuse their customers significantly less, and not at all in my case. I've never had a problem with them. Never had, I think there was one time where it was like I tried to transfer some money and it would have overdrafted me, and they're like, I will just waive that, whatever. You've never done it before. We're not going to ding you $90 for no reason. You do this every day, 5 days a week. We got a problem, but they were very understanding. So hopefully.
Oh, for sure. I've had the same experience in credit unions, honestly. So yeah. I agree with you.
And all of that just to talk over the ringing until it stopped. So anyway, right. I don't know how much more time it feels like there's something significant in the lack of a face, and not just, so there's a lot of different ways to go with that. And one of them is to make you uncomfortable, to give you the feeling of discomfort, to give you this unavoidable visual representation of something unusual, unsettling, that, a very obvious thing that you would, if we're going with the like second guessing your gut feeling, something you would have to really work to overcome your trust of your gut feeling. You would have to really come up with some rationalizations to not say, this is obviously weird, I don't like it. Maybe there's something in there, but also the idea of the face being missing could be more along the lines of your brain wants you to think of it as the identity of this person doesn't matter. Maybe does that feel more likely? Like this is more broadly applicable to all people. This is the faceless stranger.
Right. No, that's kind of how I interpret it before I look anything up. It's like this thing is just a walking metaphor, essentially. Like it's not a specific person. They're just meant to serve as like as basically just like a catch-all umbrella the general stranger. Their specific face doesn't matter.
And that assumes too that you didn't have some experience of an image from your past related to, say, someone wearing in a cartoon, in a movie. What comes to mind is Watchmen, that Rorschach mask he pulls over his head.
Right.
Well, there's another character called like the Question or something, and his is just white or maybe with a question mark or something. Hi, where did you come from? we got cats. So if there was some kind of association with that, maybe it comes to your mind. Maybe you can think of an iconic representation of a faceless type of creature, Slender Man or something.
That's the first thing I thought of, and that's why I got a little creeped out too, because I was just like, I went down a weird rabbit hole years ago with that kind of stuff. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, I hope it's not like something like that,
Oh yeah. So kind of even in the dream, or looking back on it, you're like, well, that was kind of Slender Man-ish.
Yeah, that's kind of what one of my immediate thoughts was right after. Because I watch a lot of just weird paranormal or cryptid type stuff, and sometimes like Slender Man conversations will come up, and so I wonder if that was somewhat of my subconscious too, of just thinking about some of that weird, lore surrounding that, and then I don't know if that was just its way of manifesting it, and I was like, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole type thing. Like,
maybe so.
That's what made me unsettled too, is because I just had that kind of thought of just something just very like evil, I guess.
Yeah. So and that's an interesting maybe juxtaposition. Something that feels very friendly, very apologetic, very innocuous. He's actually very harmless. He's not doing anything. There's no reason, but he looks like something creepy as fuck and dangerous. And so there's this very much a disconnect between the behavior and the appearance. That might be something. So it may actually be kind of a Slender Man-ish. Look at this thing that appears like it should be dangerous, but it's not behaving like it is. That that might relate something too. That's where I'm going with some of this. Like, so again, if we go with the general idea of, okay, boundaries, people pleaser, hard time saying no, there is something dangerous about the emotionally manipulative person that appeals to your empathy and looks harmless, but man, they're just an energy vampire, or they're asking for money all the time, or they always need a ride, or there's never reciprocity. It's they only see them when they need something. There's actually something very dangerous about that type of person that looks harmless. And here we actually have maybe in some ways the reverse, something that looks dangerous, but it's not. That's interesting too.
Right.
I don't know if anything comes to mind. All of that.
And that stuff's really interesting too. And I mean, and I'm not even thinking about like toxic relationships necessarily, but like almost like I don't know, like even just like platonic like relationships with people, if they're very emotionally draining type thing, if you just feel like you're always walking on eggshells around them, that can be its own thing. And
it can be, and maybe they're even a perfectly nice person, and they don't really do anything bad or dangerous or nothing harmful to you specifically, but you're not comfortable. You're just not able to kind of relax and just be you and accept that know that they're going to accept and roll with it, and not come up with, because there's very often a relationship mismatch. There's reasons people don't get along, and one of those is that just the way I kind of naturally am. Say maybe I got a sarcastic, snarky side to me, and I like saying things that sound mean, but I don't mean it. But I really like to nail as mean as I can, and we both laugh at it. But you're not laughing. You don't find that funny, and you find it's just mean. It's not humorous. I don't like it. Well, neither one of you is wrong, but it ain't gonna work. One of you is gonna have to tolerate something they don't like or change the way they behave. At some point, you just say, "Hey, you're a nice guy. There's a million fish in the sea. I'm just gonna see other people, so to speak. We're just not gonna be best friends. This is not gonna happen." That could be a kind of iconic thing going on there too. Relationships in general, balancing those balancing acts. I was gonna go somewhere else with some of that. I get completely. I go off on tangents and get completely brain fogged.
No, it's just a random kind of thought came to my head with all this, is that like I feel like I'm a very passive person, and like I don't, but I'm also very honest if I have to be type thing. Like I won't. It's hard for me to initiate confrontation, but if somebody like confronts me about something, I'm gonna be honest, and it's almost like a nice sigh of relief, because I'll tell someone truthfully if they ask me, or if something happens. But it's like it's hard for me to initiate that conversation. So I think that's where like it's a lot easier for me to be definitive or say how I'm honestly feeling if somebody says, "Hey, like what's going on with this? Like is something going on? Like what's going on?" Then I'll be honest, and I'll kind of say how I'm feeling. I'll be as respectful as I can. But it's those are really hard things for me to initiate myself, though. And so I don't know if there's any sort of significance or segue there with it.
It might be, because we're kind of in that part of the dream where we're still processing the initial experience of letting the creature in. And then what comes next is it starts to follow you around, and you're having a hard time initiating perhaps this confrontation with the thing to say, I shouldn't let you in. You got to go. Which is this kind of, it's this very active rejection. It's an ejection. You're physically, say, throwing them out of the story if you're not violently doing it, but still they have to physically leave. It is, and that the ejection and rejection, projectile, they all share the same root word because of the behavior of pushing away, or the movement of it. I think there's something when you think of it in that term, and then what came next in the dream. Can you kind of describe what was the experience like of them following you around? Was it obvious right off the bat they're dogging you, or after a while they just start hanging out closer and closer? What did they come in there to do?
If I remember right, it almost started like subtly to where they would just kind of pop up randomly no matter where I went. And unfortunately, I don't remember where I went. I mean, apparently I was flying to all these places, but I could be outside in this dark city life or something like that, and they'd be on the street or something. Hey, remember me from this or whatever? And
so the thing was,
it kind of be like
it was not confined to the record shop. That was a rather brief encounter in there. And
that's kind of like a brief thing. And then I would kind of, I never really went inside another place to my memory after that. I was just kind of roaming around this dark city and just kind of flying places.
Yeah.
But this thing was just kind of always there. At first, it was just kind of like I could be walking around outside or something, and then yeah, hey, remember me? You know, like it almost just felt like it was just like a coincidence type thing of running into each other. But then I think eventually it progressed into like this person's tailing me type thing. Like they're like flying like close to me or like just constantly surrounding me.
So there was an experience between letting them in and you leaving the store. How long were you maybe there together? Did they do anything while you were there? Did they go to the back? Did they start browsing records?
I think they were kind of browsing and making small talk, and it was one of those things like it felt like an eternity inside that shop, just because it's one of those. It's like any uncomfortable situation. It may have only been a few minutes, but it feels like an eternity when it's happening. And just the whole time I'm just thinking like I got to get out of here. I got to figure out a way out of this, and then eventually I somehow leave this store, and I don't remember exactly how my exit went. Like if I just went out the door and just said, "Hey, I really got to get going," and then I flew somewhere else. I think the next thing I knew, it just kind of like jumped to just me kind of flying around this city and looking at stuff or just finding my next destination, I guess.
And you said this flying is something that is not uncommon in your dreams. Maybe not every dream, but very often in your dreams you fly places.
Actually, no. Yeah, I can't think of another dream to where that's happened to where I like fly places.
Okay, well, I'm glad I asked. I thought that was more.
So that like stands out on its own because that's not a normal thing that happens in my dreams.
That is interesting too. So yeah, then that is a very common, say, human response to an uncomfortable situation. We kind of fly away. I'm just gonna leave. I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this. Distance ourselves physically, emotionally, check out mentally. We're not really paying attention. There's a lot of different ways to kind of separate in that sense. So yeah, and if you look up, say, in dream books, we'll say, well, flying means self-confidence. Maybe not. Maybe it could mean fearful flight, like, metaphorically, right, in that sense. So it can mean a lot of different things, but it didn't surprise you in the dream. You didn't have a spirit, whoa, I'm flying. It wasn't the big focus. It was kind of just, this is how people get around.
Yeah, pretty much. It was just kind of like, oh yeah, I just got to go somewhere. And then I fly there. And I didn't think anything of it in the dream.
And you mentioned specifically, say, kind of like that, the Chronicle movie. Did you have an experience like that of like Neo style tensing and into the air? Or
yeah, kind of. Like I remember actually, like, I think the main reason why I connected to that movie is I feel like I just moved with such like speed and precision. Like I was moving pretty fast when I flew. And yeah, it wasn't just like a slow, gradual joyride somewhere. It was just like I was like going with intention almost. Like I was soaring pretty fast. I mean, I had no idea how to actually like calculate the speed or anything, but like it felt like I was going pretty fast.
I don't even know what those what was the airspeed
right.
There's a word for them, like a RPMs is your odometer, right? There's a word for it. I'm not going to rack my brain on that one. Can't remember. I'm going to think of a speed. I'm going to write that down. Speed. Okay. No, I'll look it up later. There is something interesting there. So leaning into the idea of flight and self-confidence, it can be, and I don't think it's exactly that. Self-confidence is one way of putting it. A lot of people think of self-confidence as self-esteem, but the confidence kind of relates to ability. The idea of knowing you can accomplish certain things, and the idea of this almost effortless, fast, directional travel. It's the confidence to know where you're going and to be able to accomplish that type of thing. So you're on about, say, more important things that are more meaningful, things that you are confident in your ability to accomplish. You know where you're going, you get there quickly, you get the job done. You're moving around this city with great facility. Versus you feel like you're dragging a ball and chain, or God, you're stuck in traffic everywhere you go. Those are different kinds of experiences in the dream. And that feels to me, and you could tell me if this resonates, but about your, like, what is it that these emotionally, appeal to empathy things do when you're on a mission? They're interruptions, distractions. They slow you down. They take you out of your groove. So there's something to that experience later on of this same iconic, mysterious figure popping up repeatedly, no matter where you go, like getting in your way, getting in your space, distracting your attention. You're flying places. You got things to do, people to see.
Yeah.
I don't know if all of that brings to mind.
I think that's a good. Yeah, I think that's a good way to summarize it. Honestly, like I can freely go and travel wherever I want and get there in a relatively quick, amount of time, and yet, like I'm free to do all this stuff, and yet I have that kind of thing just always following me around and just kind of holding me back in a way. Not physically, but just always kind of being there. And it could take a simple confrontation to maybe make it to stop. But as I just keep getting deeper and deeper into the situation, and this thing starts to get a little bit more, I guess, aggressive or invasive, then it begs the question, what is this thing's intentions? What is it capable of? I don't want to like piss this thing off too much and then just be regretting things even more. So it's like, I don't really know how to handle this situation. And then eventually I just become powerless to it. 'Cause it's like, I could try to be nice and polite, but obviously they're not picking up on that, or they just don't care.
Yeah.
If I try to do the more aggressive approach, will they respond to it, or will that backfire harder?
And was there any kind of resolution in the dream, or you just got this? The way you originally described it, I think, is eventually you just felt trapped by it.
Yeah.
And so the dream actually kind of ended with you not having a resolution to this, other than almost a kind of capitulation of like, I don't know. So sometimes the feeling of being trapped incorporates a resignation. I'm trapped. That's the way it is. Sometimes it's more of a panic feeling of trapped, of like, I'm not finding a way out. This is not okay. And did you have more? Hey, puppy. Did you have more of a feeling one way or the other about that trapped feeling? What it mostly represents?
That's a good question, because I definitely felt trapped at the end of the day, but I think it was more so like I'm trapped and I have to, I guess, figure out a way to accept this because I don't know another alternative at this point. And
there was a bit of a feeling of resignation at the end of the dream of like, this is kind of just the way it is. I don't know what else to do about it.
Kind of a bummer way to wake up, but yeah.
It is. Yeah. If that's the feeling that stuck with you, especially of like, here I am awake again and I'm trapped. No. Speaking of which, anyone out there watching, well, not speaking of what trapped, he's trapped in his little vest. This is Peanut Butter. This is what he looks like without all the fur. He was literally, you could put him on a pole and he would be a mop. We got him a little haircut, and now it's springtime and we're getting sun, but he's still a little chilly. So he gets his little vest. But you are going to have, okay, you went down. All right. He just wanted to be on camera. Look at that.
Just so.
Look at that little.
He wanted to show off his haircut.
Little camera hog. He did. And he's running around in the background here. Sometimes this is Prince, the one who ate my episode we were talking about, and that's Peanut Butter, and so sometimes they get along, sometimes they don't. And he's going back into his little pillow cave.
That's great.
So yeah, sometimes dreams take us on a journey like this, and they give us an answer. Sometimes they're showing us the picture of our thoughts on a particular subject, and it seems like this one, because it doesn't have an answer for you, or at least a positive resolution of where you're going like, I solved it and here's how I did it. You might maybe still be wrestling with where to draw the line on some of these things. The next question would be, when this happened a year ago, were you going through anything where that was a more pressing subject? Were you having to make some tough decisions about maintaining relationships versus pursuing your own career? Does that seem to line up with things you were going through at the time?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, just in terms of that, I feel like I do have a tendency to take on, way more than I should, and then I just burn myself out,
especially if someone asks for a
projects. Favor. Yeah. So then I'm just like, all right. Yeah. All right, I'll take this on or something. And like I said, I have a hard time saying no to things. And then I was like, I can swing it in my schedule. And then I think it gets really hard if they're just ongoing commitments type thing, to where it's like, it's not like a one-time thing. This is just an ongoing thing. And this is, becoming overwhelming. And it's like, but can I realistically keep this up? Was this just kind of a rough week or rough month or whatever? Is this something I want to keep up? And just having those difficult things when they're more ongoing and I have to make those harder decisions. It's almost just like, leaving a job or something like that, to where it's like, it's not like the job or anything, like, and I like that, but it's like, I don't know. It's like I had that experience a lot more, I think, with a bunch of different part-time jobs that I had, because I didn't start actually having a full-time job and working full-time until a little over 5 years ago. Up until then, it was just juggling multiple part-time jobs. Mm-hmm. And every job had different nuances and things to it, or ate up a certain amount of my time or something, or just maybe I'm looking for more pay or something. And I was like, okay, I got to cut one of these commitments. And that was something I constantly had to do. And so it was just like, oh, I realistically can't do this job anymore. And I think it makes it harder when you make personal connections.
I was just thinking that, yeah.
Because, well, for example, like I previously worked at community mental health with people with mental illness. And then I've also worked as a substitute teacher. So almost in that capacity too, when you deal with other people that you see regularly all the time, who may not fully grasp the concept of you leaving your job, whether it's some kids or someone who has some sort of mental illness or something like that, to where I feel like you have to maybe re-emphasize or re-explain it, or really just break it down, into pretty simple terms. And even then, who knows if they fully grasp it. Those are hard. Those are really hard.
That is really tough too. It's like it's someone you've, especially mental health. I get that. That's it's my background too. And people who you've developed a relationship with and kind of come to rely on you, and they're like, "What do you mean you're leaving?" I mean, that's heartbreaking too. It's like, well, I care about you, but this is just a job. But it's not just a job. It's one I care about, which makes it hard to go. But I'm still going. I have to. It's for me. Moving on from things like that. And even let's say it's not that real, but you're working for an employer or coworkers who kind of rely on you as someone very experienced in the environment, and there's a mentorship relationship perhaps, and you got to let them know, sorry, baby birds, you're out of the nest, you're on your own. But mama's leaving. I got to go. I got to do my own thing. And you feel like a jerk for abandoning people. There's that like as much as it sucks to feel abandoned, it sucks to feel like you are abandoning someone. That can be a very difficult. God, it sucks to have emotions, doesn't it? Sometimes these things
it makes things so much more difficult. Yeah,
it really does. Yeah. No, and I'm on the autistic side of things, so I more grasp these things intellectually. I do experience them, but maybe like a tenth of what more people do. I can't imagine having a full range of emotions. What the hell do people experience in this world? I can't process it. And no wonder people do all kinds of crazy stuff. They're driven by these passions that I feel fortunate not to have. It makes it hard to understand, but God, I have tremendous compassion for them in that regard too, where it's like, God, no wonder. Life ain't easy. These situations are impossible.
It's draining, especially I feel like I'm a very emotional person personally. So it's a very draining thing. You want to please everybody. And I feel like I'm constantly one that puts myself on the back burner, which is its own form of self-destruction, obviously, because if I'm constantly pleasing everybody else and not making time for myself, then that's not healthy either.
Yeah, so they talk about that idea of self-care. It's like you've got to, what do I put it into physical, logical terms, of course. It's like if you are out of balance, you can't catch someone else who's falling off the tightrope and bring them back into balance. You got to be stable first, and then finding out where that stability point is, where you're able to reach out and who to reach out to and when to reach out to them. Anyway, I feel like I interrupted you, but that's the same concept.
Yeah, no, definitely. And no, self-care is definitely important. And I even went to therapy several years ago because I actually have like clinical OCD, and my obsessions got like pretty bad. I have like very ritualistic obsessions, and it got really just draining. And I had like a bad panic attack at work that, I went home early from it, and I was like, I need to get help for this and try to take control of it. And I think that helped. And unfortunately, I've been falling back into some traps of obsessive behavior. I think it ultimately depends on the time of year, what triggers I have, and identify those triggers and try to manage them. I'm not really a believer in just avoiding all triggers, because then that just avoids situations. I think it's much better personally if I learn how to cope and manage them. Because it's kind of unreasonable to ask people to, to be mindful of every single trigger that I have. I can't ask people to do that. I just got to be better about managing what triggers me.
Yeah. Well, and it's also life limiting. I mean, there's two ways to go about, say, you've got a skin condition where you burn really bad in the sun. You can stay indoors all the time. Never go out in the sunshine. You never go outdoors. That's its own kind of prison. Or you can wear sunscreen and a hat and long sleeves. There's ways to deal with it. The condition's still there, but there's different ways to kind of mitigate the circumstances and better and worse coping strategies, we would say. Yeah. One thing I would ask is in relation to this and the general theme and the time of your life, do you feel like you've changed since then in terms of looking back on this dream saying, I'm not actually that person in the dream today? Like I've found a better balance of where I couldn't imagine myself feeling that way because now I'm handling things differently. Has something changed, or in your opinion, or?
I wish I could say that, but it's still something I'm working on, unfortunately. I still have a hard time saying no and being definitive with people. And so I almost wonder if the stream is more so of a reflection of a past experience where I got burned or something from a lack of judgment, or if it's a warning for, like, if you keep this up, it's not going to be good. You know? Yeah,
it definitely seems iconic of a known phenomenon of a clear type. And so sometimes they can be, one way to look at this in the supernatural sense is saying it's a prophetic dream, not in because that exact, you're going to be in a record shop and Slender Man's going to show up. That's probably not the case, but you will be in this type of situation again. It's a struggle in life you're going to have to confront over and over again with different people, with the same person multiple times, because boundaries change on a day-to-day basis. We change who we are, our approach to things. We try something new. It doesn't work. I was going somewhere with that. So probably at that time in your life, that might have been when this type of problem kind of crystallized more for you. And maybe in a way that you weren't able to put it into words like we have today, but this conceptualization of it's like your brain's educating itself by analogy. Imagine it's like this. Now do you get it? And that's kind of what dreams do sometimes, is put these things in these forms where we can kind of see the pieces connected and we get the full picture of what that thing is. And then it takes sometimes talking to someone, saying it out loud, to kind of pick the pieces apart and identify the elements, and then what is the story trying to tell us. I wish I could. Scared the cat. I was trying to say I wish I could identify more elements of the dream where it was giving you advice in a way. Like, I hesitate to do that. I don't ever want to tell someone this is what it means and this is you ought to do. I try not to do that because what the hell do I know? I'm just some guy who thinks he's a wizard. Don't listen to me, right? But I think there is something in there. There's something tickling me in terms of. I think it might be the flying around town part of it. That's complicated by the trapped feeling at the end. It might be, if I had to try and phrase it in a way, it'd be like leaning into that self-confidence, trusting it, definitely in that trusting your gut type of thing. That can make it real difficult still to have those confrontations that are very uncomfortable, but I think that might become easier with the trusting the gut and the confidence of the ability of flight type of directional accomplishment type of things. I don't know if any of that's making sense. I think there's something in there. That's just my gut. Yeah,
I think it makes sense for sure. And yeah, especially that whole, because I love to travel and I travel quite a bit. And it's just kind of ironic to think about that in this dream, I can travel to pretty much anywhere I want to go, and get there in a short amount of time, but yet I'm still trapped. You know what I mean? Like I'm trapped because I have this thing kind of following me and I can't shake it. And it's going to take some sort of confrontation or something that I'm not doing well at to be able to free myself potentially, but I never really have that resolution. It's just kind of an ongoing thing. And then my solution in it is just to cope with it and say, that's the way of life, but is that really living? You know what I mean?
Rather than saying the dream came to an answer, what I mean by that is not having a solution at that moment doesn't mean there is no solution. I don't think that's the message of the dream necessarily. Definitely that you could not conceive of one at the time, and maybe you can't even conceive of one yet, but knowing what it is, kind of identifying the problem, getting that look at it from all these different angles and really understanding how it works, at least is the first step. It's kind of like, what is it with people that they go to a drug addict, you got to admit there's a problem. Then you start looking for help.
Right.
Well, admitting there's a problem doesn't solve anything, but it's the first step. It's got to be done, or nothing else can be done. So
exactly.
That might have been the nature of that kind of a dream, saying just really have a look at this problem you're experiencing and understand it, at least, even if you haven't figured out how you want to handle it yet. That seems to be kind of where it was going.
Yeah.
That's my understanding of it anyway, after talking to you.
No, definitely. And yeah, and that's kind of the overall vibe I got from it too, is like you really have to be mindful of who you let in, who you're, kind of how you form your judgment. And like in this sense, I mean, my gut was right. I mean, unfortunately, it was kind of after the fact, after I let this thing in, but I knew right off the bat that wasn't a good idea type thing.
Yeah. And
randomly, I believe it was Steve Irwin who said this, pulling up like a Steve Irwin quote, but he said something along the lines of, if an alligator doesn't like me, like he's going to come after me and bite me. Like I can tell what his intentions are. He's not hiding anything.
Yeah.
He said humans are the most dangerous creatures because they could be smiling at you and stab you in the back type thing. So that's why it makes it really tricky to be, careful of who you let in and kind of be mindful of what people's intentions are.
Yeah, and that is a great way of phrasing it too. That goes back to, I mean, you let this person in. You had to open the door. They weren't getting in any other way. It had to be a willful invitation on your part. And there's sometimes reflecting on those elements of the dream too. Say, there's different opportunities for interrupting the outcome you don't want to have happen. And it is interesting too, because you used to say, like, literally on a plane, fly around the world to go to these different places. And you were probably at that time, and from past experience, encountering a lot of the same type of problems with relationships with people, with social pressures and whatnot. So very interesting to have that show up. It's like the same faceless type of situation embodied in a person, but many different people over multiple iterations. So I love those category or type constructs where you can understand, oh, I've seen that before, and there it is again, and there it is again. That satisfies my autistic side of the pattern recognition type of stuff. That's kind of how I function in life, is like, does it fit a pattern? If it doesn't, okay, time to make a new pattern. What am I doing here? What is this thing?
Well, no, and something I was just thinking about too is that there are many different forms of, I guess, letting someone in, whether that's physically,
True.
Like someone's knocking at the door, or someone wants to in place and you physically let them in, or you let them in, I guess, from a emotional standpoint of just, whether that's, a romantic relationship, platonic relationship, like you're kind of letting somebody in your space, whether it's physically or metaphorically. And both are very difficult to deal with, in their own regards. Like, how do you kick a person out of your house that's physically in your house and you want them to leave? What tactic do you take there, as opposed to somebody who you just don't really vibe with them? There's nothing really wrong with them, but you just don't really want to spend a significant amount of time with them. Or, how do you handle that situation? How do you leave a job to where you're just not happy there? Like, there's so many different things to where you feel trapped, you attach yourself to something, but ultimately having those difficult conversations or figuring out, I guess, how to, not be trapped anymore and how to get yourself out of the situation. And it's just interesting to think, like, which aspect it's speaking to in the dream, if it's all fronts, because I feel like I've had fronts in the past to where, maybe I had a knock at the door and, it was I don't know, solicitor or someone asking for money or whatever, and I answered the door and I was like, why did I do that? I shouldn't have answered that,
yeah.
Or like, or
those people are much easier to just ignore. I don't know you, I'm not answering the door. I just knock all you want. Yeah.
Right. And then it gets tricky if it's like, you've known this person for years or something like that, and then I don't know, like you form this venture with them, or maybe you have a romantic relationship with them, but then you realize, no, this is more just a friend. Like, how do you deal with those situations? And they're all difficult to deal with, just in different ways.
Yeah. I think that might be the lesson of the dream, is that if there's a lesson, what am I trying to say? But the idea that really confronting the idea that this is something that's going to have to be dealt with repeatedly, and maybe coming to an acceptance of that idea that this is not something, it's not something you're actually doing wrong. It's like, it's not, you didn't invite this person over and then they showed up and knocked on the door. They came knocking on your door. So these are situations that are going to confront you in a way that's unavoidable. And sometimes that's a powerful lesson too, of like, oh, all of these attempted escape behaviors really aren't going to, and maybe that was what was actually going on in the dream. That resignation of feeling trapped is like, I can't actually get away from this type of person. I'm going to meet them over and over again in my life. And that sucks, but okay, that's the way it is. Now what do we do? And maybe even not having an answer yet, but still holding on to that idea of I need to do something. I'm going to eventually have to find a way to deal with this better. That might have been kind of the point of the concept of what the dream was exploring, or the conclusion it came to at the end in a way. So. Yeah,
no, definitely. And yeah, actually a couple things came to thought when you mentioned that too. It's like the idea of just making snap judgments. It's difficult. It really is. And I feel like as human beings, it's not an easy thing to do. I mean, you're basing on very limited information and having to make a decision or an inference about somebody, and having to make a decision in that moment. And yeah, that was kind of difficult too. And like what you said, this person came knocking on the door. I had to make the decision, do I let them in or not? And I kind of, in that instance, kind of felt like I had a limited amount of time to make a decision. I had to do something. And that's different than if you've had multiple interactions with somebody and they want to hang out with you or do something, then you have a little bit more to go off. Do I like this person? Do I want to hang out with them? Do I not? You know, you have more to base it on. But and it's actually funny because I'm reading a Malcolm Gladwell book right now. I've read several of his books, but he talks about some of these concepts in some of his books. I believe it is Blink that he talks about kind of the idea of our gut feelings and snap decisions. And that was a really interesting book because he dives into the psychological aspects of that and kind of how our mind works in that regard. And actually almost the fallacy of almost having too much information is a bad thing, because then you start getting fixated on details that don't matter as much. It's a whole thing. I could go all day about that.
Sure.
Read Malcolm Gladwell's books if you don't already. They're great.
Oh yeah, definitely. No, that's true. Because and there's a danger in always trusting your gut and making snap decisions, because you could be wrong. I mean, we want to balance our emotional response with our rational understanding of what is it? I don't want to get out of bed today, so I'm just not going to. That's what my gut's telling me. Well, you get fired, and now you don't have a bed anymore because you don't have a house. So there's sometimes you trust your gut, and sometimes you say, I'm going to override this for specific reasons that I deem more important. Maybe, I mean, all I can say, I suppose, is my approach is trying to, I think way too much all the time. People think I ramble here. You should hear what's going on in the head. I try to game out as many different kinds of scenarios for everything I possibly can. What's this going to be like? How do I respond to that? What does that look like? What are the permutations of these different directions I could go with things? Sometimes you can over prepare, but and that is its own kind of decision-making paralysis. So that, somewhere between, information overload and inability to make a decision and snap decisions that you might end up regretting later. Sometimes you just got to do something to the best of your ability, and then forgive yourself later for, well, that wasn't really smart. Or I think I was I told you no, and then I thought about it. Actually, I'm gonna do that thing. I do have time, and sometimes I say, let me think about it. Usually I say, let me sleep on it, because I may not. I often don't remember my dreams, but I will wake up the next day and I've got a better idea of what the hell I was thinking the other day. Just needed time to settle out to the bottom of the pond.
As weird as it is, I think clear when I go for a run. That's almost like my meditative practice. So
There
like,
you go.
but I've never
Nice.
used that phrase of just like, oh, let me run on it, type thing, or like go for a run. But I really should start using that because that's when I start to think more clearly.
There's a title for a book. Let me run on it. And it's
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
here's my meditation while I'm running. Here's what it does for me. That's a great idea. I love that.
That is a great idea. I might have to trademark that now.
It's all yours. It's all yours. Done. I'm giving it away. It's on video.
Perfect.
Well, we've been going for, I don't know, hour and a half almost. If you feel like we've talked this thing into the ground, which we may have, or if there's little elements you wanted to take a second look at, I'm okay either way. It's entirely up to you.
Yeah, I mean, well, the only other thing that I'm kind of thinking about, I'm not sure if this tied into the dream or had any or was any sort of manifestation of it, but I just remember like an instance one time where I was on vacation and like, I'm basically asleep and there's a knock at the door and I'm kind of foggy. I'm just getting out of sleep and stuff like that. And for whatever reason, I'm just not thinking clearly. I was like, oh, I got to answer the door. I got to see who it is. And I'm just kind of caught off guard. And I make that snap decision to do that. And it's like this guy outside and he's just like rambling and stuff like that and just talking. And like, I'm the whole time trying to gauge his character and stuff. And at first, he's just like, I know, I'm really sorry to bother you type thing. And, all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, I mean, okay, like what's going on? And then he's just rambling on and like talking about like, how his like wife got hit by a car and all this other stuff and all those other things. And I'm like, oh, that's bad and stuff like that. But, and I'm like, like, okay, maybe this guy's in shock or something like that. I'm trying to gauge this guy's character. And then it takes a little bit. And I'm like, no, I think this guy's just, like just drugged out or something and wants some money or something. And like, he just would not stop talking, like type thing. And like, I wasn't like, I don't know. There were certain moments to where I kind of thought like, what are this guy's intentions and stuff like that? I don't really know, but he just kept like talking, but I didn't have the heart to necessarily like, I didn't have like any room to like cut him off or anything. He just kept talking. I was too polite to just shut the door in his face because I already opened the door. And now that I'm like thinking about all this stuff out loud, I wonder if this was like a because after that happened, I remember I was just like, I felt like such an idiot. And I was like, why did I even bother opening it I'm in this new city in like a house that's not even mine. It's like this Airbnb and there's like the stranger knocked on my, because for some reason in my head, I like rationalized at first, like maybe it's, I don't know. Maybe it's like some person in a weird situation or the owner stopped by for some maintenance thing that I wasn't aware of, or I don't know, something like that.
Yeah.
And I don't know. As we got talking about all this stuff and diving into all this stuff, I wonder if any of this is like a manifestation of like that experience, because I remember in that situation, I was so mad at myself after the fact. So I feel like such an idiot. Why did I do that? Like I wasted like an hour and a half just listening to this guy ramble for no reason. And I was too polite to say, hey, man,
it went on
like,
that long?
It's like, yeah, it was a long time. And I was like, dude, it's like 5 a.m, man. Like, that's like get to the point.
That's a seriously like traumatic experience too, where you're like, I just want this to end like now.
Yeah.
And it keeps going for another hour and a half.
You just want it to end. And it's just like, and you had that battling judgment of like, is this guy like, because in the beginning stages, like, is this guy for real? Like, maybe he's just rambling so much and doing all this because he's in shock right now because he had something traumatic happen.
He could have been.
I'm trying to get engagement for that.
You want to be helpful. So who's knocking on the door?
Like, I want to be sympathetic and like,
if you can,
but it's like, but then eventually, it's
probably an intense enough experience to trigger a dream of this kind where you're gonna, if it was something you could forget about immediately, something that wasn't intensely negative to the point where it stuck with you, it wouldn't pop up in a dream, but it would then come around to the idea of an iconic type of situation of like this kind of thing. My response to it, the position I was in, that feels really familiar across this other spectrum of experiences. And that would be very much one of those things where if you think you made a mistake or there was an unpleasant experience and you want to be able to avoid it again in the future, you spend some time thinking about it, and it might pop up in that nighttime thinking. Yeah, that makes. And this was the dream happened relatively after that event, or?
Yeah, this dream probably happened, I'd want to say, a good deal after this, not like a super long time, probably like actually, I feel like that experience probably happened Well, it was actually in a year. So this experience or this dream actually probably happened, I don't know, like within, maybe I had this dream actually several months ago. My timelines are all off with the pandemic and stuff, but
Fair enough.
I feel like the event and that dream happened within a year of each other. So you never know, it could have been floating around my subconscious still. Because I remember initially after it, I didn't even want to talk about the experience because I was just really embarrassed by it. I was like, I'm such an idiot. I don't know why I did that type thing. And it's so maybe it was a manifestation of that, because I remember in my dream I kept beating myself up like, why'd I even open the door? That was stupid, like
and just that experience of opening the door might have been related to that, but then the rest of it is we see it's drawn from your time in the music business, and you're flying around the world to do different things. So there may be like, and often our brain does this too. So two different things. One is the idea of it draws together all these seemingly random things, but it uses them as representations of specific concepts in the story. It's kind of like we use words as symbols for ideas. Your brain's using images and different stuff. So instead of writing it out as a short story in text, it's putting it in this image sequence in your brain. I just thought of that. I've never said that before. It's like the analogy to writing a story in letter symbols versus image symbols. I'm just going to be proud of myself for 2 seconds. Done.
Yeah.
Well, the other side of it is, you may have had this seriously intense experience, and then it bothered you for a good long time, and then over time your brain started ticking little instances that were similar, and then eventually enough of them got together, you're like, oh, there's a pattern here, but you didn't think that consciously. The pattern put itself together in your brain before you were able to articulate it verbally, consciously in this, like we're doing now. That seems like most of it. I was going somewhere with all that. Yeah.
No, that's, I think you're definitely onto something there. I mean, because I think our subconscious mind is, it's wild, and it picks up on literally everything. And then some of those things manifest in our dreams, and they won't make sense at the time. But yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head in the sense of, as I got talking about that experience out loud, it was almost like a word for word retelling of like the feeling and the overall symbolism of my dream in so many regards for just that instance. But then I feel like there are tons of instances in my life to where if it's just metaphorical and I let someone in, I have a hard time being confrontational and I feel trapped. Like same concept applies. And I feel like it's almost taking all of those different ideas and kind of combining it in one whole nightmarish experience.
A lot of these iconic things generalize very well in that sense. Yeah, for sure. Well, was that the only kind of things you wanted to take a second look at? Was there anything else? I'm always keen to talk about whatever people's interest is.
I think I think we covered a lot of ground on that dream, and it's making me kind of reflect on some aspects of my life or some things that may have contributed to that dream, and little ways I can work on myself to, try to have a solution instead of just accepting it and being like, well, this is life now. And
and those are two ways to go. You can say, this is how it is. I'm not doing anything about it. It's going to suck. And sometimes that is true. Sometimes like you get, you lose a leg. Hey, diabetes gets blown off in a war. Leg's gone, man. It sucks, but that's not, you're not growing it back. So you accept it and you move on. Then there's the other kind of stuff where, well, just broadly speaking, you look at something and you say, this is not okay. This doesn't have to be this way. I can change it. How do I do that? And you just decide I want to, and I'm going to figure it out. And then you do, or you don't. But I think mostly we do. We figure we either come to an acceptance. This isn't as important as I thought it was, or we do actually do something about it. So I think just getting a look at it, that already puts you on the path to saying, okay, now tonight or in the next week or year, you'll have another dream, and it'll give you a hint of a solution that you think might be acceptable to you emotionally and functionally effective. I think there's going to be something comes out of this, talking to you. And I always tell people, get back to me if something changes, if I was able to do the least bit of good for you, I would like to know. Yes,
for sure.
It's always my plan anyway.
Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, it's definitely given me a lot to think about, and ways that I need to approach things to yeah, like you said, I mean, there's some things you just kind of have to accept as a way of life and the way things are if it is definitive. But if there's something to where you could easily have a better alternative in this situation, you get sometimes, as much as these conversations suck and I hate confrontation, sometimes it's kind of essential for your own well-being, or at least airing these ideas out there and saying like, hey, I really should let you know, like, truthfully how I feel about this thing. Mm-hmm. And if you look like an asshole at the end of the day, I mean,
I tried.
You know, like you tried, you know what I mean? You voiced your opinion, and I feel like that's admirable in its own way and something that, you know,
and it's important too that it's not all on you. I mean, other people decide how they're going to view you in a lot of ways, and that can be accurate or inaccurate in terms mm-hmm. of, you know, their judgment call on your motives, or and you can't control that either way, and it's not all on you to like, oh, if I'd only presented myself better, they wouldn't have a bad opinion. Sometimes you did everything you could and they still think you're a jerk. Well, they're just wrong. They're okay. Right. I'm sorry you feel that way. Nothing personal. And that's tough. That's still tough. It's like, again, it's one thing to say that. It's another thing to go, man, a lot of people hate me, but I'm really okay. Am I? I think I am. We'll see if this channel ever gets popular and I've got enough hate followers calling me awful names on the internet. I wonder if I'll be able to be so philosophical about it. I have no idea. It'll be an interesting personal case study.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
That's
fantastic.
Oh, come on. He wants outside. I'm going to let him outside. I'm going to let you go, and we'll wrap it up. You feel good about that?
Yeah, that sounds good. No, right. I feel like I said what I need to say pretty much.
Good deal. Oh, and it was a fantastic conversation. These things are, never know where they're going. There's a lot of common themes in psychology and common human experiences, but each dream is definitely its own contained concept relevant to the person. That was my theory going into this mm-hmm. over the years, but all my experiences just confirmed it, unless someone can show me major contra examples, case in point, type of situations. But anyway, okay, then we'll do the thing. We'll do the housekeeping, and I'll say once again, thanks to our friend Eric Spitz. You can find his content, his podcasts and interviews at Juxtaposed Journeys.com, and that's going to be in the description below. Don't worry about trying to spell it. It'll even be in the description of the podcast if you're listening audio only. So and then for my part, I'll just say, hey, please stop what you're doing, like, share, subscribe, tell your friends. Always need more volunteer dreamers. Got books of historical dream literature for sale. Get a coffee mug, t-shirt. Hey, like the one I'm wearing. These are going to be out of print soon. I'm making a new one for the new logo, so get one of these if you want them. Very high quality, good stuff on the Teespring store. That's it. That's enough housekeeping for me. And yeah, Eric, thanks for being here. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah. Thank you so much again for having me on. This is a blast.
Right on. Good talking to you. I appreciate it. And I'll just say to everybody out there, thanks for listening.
Yeah. Thank you.
I hid this so the cat wouldn't turn the episode off.
Good idea.